What's up, tricksters, and welcome to the very first episode of Raze to Immortal series, a series where I'll try to reach Immortal by only playing Raze, while teaching you a lot of pro tips, tricks, and strategies for smart grind in Valorant. The goal is to have the absolutely highest win rate while teaching you some high elo knowledge that you can abuse to rank up faster. In the previous ranked episode, we've completed the Jet and Omen series, so I highly recommend you to check these videos as well for some extra knowledge. And you should consider all of these series like an in-depth agent guides that you won't find anywhere else. Also, during this series, same as before, I'm making the ranked playbook with the best Raze executes and tactics for every single map. If you have any questions about Raze, feel free to ask me down in the comments, and I highly recommend you to join my Discord server for private coaching, because there you can also get access to the Raze ranked playbook, which is gonna help you a lot to unlock her full potential. By the way, all of these games are streamed live on my Twitch channel, and you can join me on this journey where I'm trying to improve the whole Valorant community. Because, as you already know, I've got Radiant in every episode from closed beta, I'm one of the most experienced and oldest Valorant coaches, and I truly believe that anyone, yes, even you, can improve in this game, reach Radiant, or become a professional player. So let's start with the placement matches, and I promise you'll be surprised to see which rank we got on this fresh new account. The first match we're playing on Split, which is one of the best maps for Raze, and we are immediately gonna start with some very important tips for proper utility usage. Listen guys, whenever you're using the Raze nade, always try to use it for some kind of a reason. Not to deal the damage, to pressure the enemies, deny certain objective from the enemies, and to create easier fight for yourself. Now, this bonus round is the perfect example of practice what you preach. One more satchel. Boomba for my...
Enemy spotted.
Kill acquired. Kill acquired. Made pressure.
Spike planted. One enemy remaining.
When enemies were pushing into B site, I've used my Boombo to apply pressure and take an easy kill onto Reyna. After that, I got a second kill on Viper and nade reset, which I immediately combined with breach stun to kill an enemy that is planting the spike. It is very important to always remind yourself that your nade is resetted after every 2 kills, so that you have zero delay in your decision making. Also, nade combos with breach stun or, for an example, fade seize are extremely powerful to deny space and take some easy kills. But these combos usually require some level of communication and timing, so if your teammates are not speaking or willing to cooperate, it is very important to track and predict your teammates' utility usage as well. Remember, my friends, adaptiveness is another skill that you need to master in order to climb the solo queue jungle of Valorant. Why the fuck is Boombot following me, man? Now, this is why you should always have Shorty as a secondary weapon with Raze.
Satchel out. 10 seconds left.
It is just so easy to close the gap with enemies and take these shorty satchel kills. On the attacker side of Split, you're looking at two things. Do they have the Sage? If the answer is no, you can abuse mid basically the whole match and try to test the enemies there. But usually the best idea is to push 5-man A tower. With a Raze in the first round, on almost every single map, you go with a classic light shield and 2 satchels. Brother, thank you a lot, Destiny. Now, one question that I get asked a lot as a Radiant coach is the following. But charlatan, what if my teammates don't listen to my strategies and callouts? No matter in what type of a scenario your teammates or enemies put you in, you need to learn how to properly adapt to them. Even though in this round the call was to do a 5-man push onto A tower, my Omen went through A main and sold the spike. Which is why as soon as I got this kill on tower, I immediately turned my focus onto A site to prevent my breach from dying in some kind of a 1v1 fight against enemy Raze. And my decision making was extremely fast because I played this type of a scenario enormous amount of times.
I don't like this angle with the sheriff, man.
Ooh.
Launching smoke.
Fuck.
Right there.
One enemy remaining.
Wait for me. Okay.
These boys. You can improve your adaptiveness simply by playing the game, but you will improve it even faster if you do regular self-VOD reviews and develop your game knowledge on a daily basis, because observing these scenarios from a third-person perspective will make you memorize things better, and your decision-making will also become faster. Now, this first game was nothing special, but you could have noticed that my satcheling is actually quite good for a player that doesn't main Raze, which brings us to another question. Charlatan, how can we improve our blast pack usage with Raze? Very good question, little gorilla. Let me explain. Raze utility has 5 primary purposes: gathering information for yourself and your team, applying damage onto enemies, applying pressure and clearing angles, creating space for yourself and your team, destroying enemies' utility, but the main combined purpose is creating easier gunfights for yourself and your teammates. When it comes to the blast pack, this is the most important piece of utility to master if you want to climb with Raze. It costs 200 credits, and usually in the first round you want to prioritize buying blast pack over the boombot on both attackers and defender side, because it's more versatile piece of utility. It only has 20 HP, which means that it's very easy to destroy with any other damaging ability, or with one bullet from almost any gun, so you need to be very careful when and how you use it. After deploying a blast pack, you can detonate this ability almost immediately for movement purposes. Once you deploy this ability, it's going to automatically activate after 5 seconds. If you want to apply damage to enemies or their utility, you need to wait 1.5 seconds for blast pack to arm in order to deal some damage. Damage that you apply is based on the distance between enemies and center of blast pack's detonation, and it varies from 20 to 50. This damage is multiplied by 2.5 when it comes to objects and destroying enemies' utility. Now, the most important information that you need to know if you want to use this piece of utility for movement purposes is that blast pack's detonation has 2 zones. We have red zone from 0 to 2 meters from the center, and we have green zone from 3 to 5 meters from the center. The speed and altitude of your satcheling depends on zones in which you're standing, in which direction you're moving, and whether or not you're jumping or standing still. If you stand in the red zone, you're mostly going up in the air with little to no horizontal movement. If you stand in the green zone, you're still going up in the air a bit, but with a lot of horizontal movement as well. So if you want to go up in the air and reach some elevated positions, you aim to detonate your satchels around 0 to 2 meters away from your body. And if you want to engage enemies, take space or reposition, you aim to detonate your satchels around 3 to 5 meters away from yourself. Now, how does all of this work in some real in-game scenarios? Let's say you're playing Bind and you revealed enemies on top of the truck with jump spotting mechanic. Instead of going for a regular fast peek or jiggle peek, what we can do, we can perform a fast Ferrari satchel peek with a huge peeker's advantage, which is really hard to track and counter. We hug the wall from which we are peeking that enemy, place our crosshair inside of the wall for the enemy's head, deploy one satchel on the same verticality as our torso, and we activate that satchel when we are around 4 meters away from it and go for an easy kill. There are multiple different variations of these satchel peeks that you can perform to F up enemy's crosshair placement and make yourself a harder target to hit. Now, if that same enemy is holding lamps and we have some close-range weapon like a shorty, we need to combine our utility in order to kill him. So what we can do is simply deploy our nade to pressure that enemy backwards, and then from short boxes we can use one satchel to travel into lamps, or we can use double satchel mechanic to travel behind a truck and backstab that enemy. If that enemy was standing close in this cubby position on A short, we can deploy a jiggle satchel onto that enemy to displace his movement and crosshair placement, which creates an easier gunfight that works in our favor. For a majority of these peaks and engagements, you need to be in the green zone of blast pack's detonation. Here is one simple trick that you can use to always understand whether or not you're in that specific zone. If you deploy a satchel exactly below yourself, make one footstep and jump forward, you're always in that green fast zone. And generally speaking, when you're using the first satchel to take space, you always want to jump forward in order to travel a bit faster and further. If you're using satchels from elevated positions, usually it's better to put that satchel below that elevated position in order to achieve the same effect. Now, when it comes to double satcheling, this is something that you definitely need to master, but it is not something that you should use 24/7. We use this mechanic only if we need to close the gap with our enemies in long corridors, or if we really need to reach some specific location on the map. This mechanic is cool for content creation and some TikTok clips, but it's not something that you should always use, because the more time you spend in the air, higher are the chances that enemies are going to kill you. When it comes to mastering double satcheling and overall Raze utility, I've explained everything in the ranked playbook that you can access on my Discord server, but another helping tool that you can use to master agents' utility usage and lineups is Valorant Tracker by TRN, which you can download for free by using my link from the description. This application allows you to analyze yourself and to always understand on which fields you can improve as a solo queue player, and in my private coaching sessions, this is the first thing that I analyze for my students. For an example, if you notice that you have a KST that is below 70%, that is terrible, and it means that you need to put more focus on proper team play. You're either dying way too much in some stupid ways, or you're not playing a proper refrag game with your allies. This software is also extremely useful to analyze your teammates and enemies during your live games, because already at the start, based on these statistics, you can instantly see which players are the weakness of yours or enemy team, which can increase your chances of winning if you use this data in the smart way. But beside all of that, Valorant Tracker also has integrated agent guides and lineups that can be extremely useful for players that are learning new agents or that simply want to increase their game knowledge while they're playing the game. For an example, if you're playing Raze on Icebox and you have no idea how to use her utility on that map, in between rounds you can simply click on guides, find Raze, select the map that you're playing, and voila! You have some short guides and lineups that you can implement on both attackers and defenders side in real time, while majority of these guides have my coaching seal of approval. Even though this video is sponsored by Valorant Tracker, which I highly appreciate, and it will help me a lot if you use my link from the description to download the app for free, I truly believe that this software can give you an advantage in your solo queue games and help you to improve faster. Now let's move on to the second game of this series, which was on Lotus. When you're playing Raze, Judge is an extremely good weapon in half-buy bonus and anti-eco rounds on some of the maps, and even on the attacker's side. Essentially, Jet, Omen and Raze kinda share the same economy management and loadouts, and that's why you should watch all of these series from beginning to the end, because every video contains some piece of information that might be useful for your ranked grind. Usually in bonus and eco rounds on the attacker side of Lotus, the best idea is to push either C or B site. Here I thought that someone is maybe hiding behind a B main box, which my teammates didn't properly clear, and that's why I've used this satchel to displace a potential enemy. But to be honest, I completely effed up this satchel. And then when we were pushing to the site, I've used a nade to take space and create pressure onto enemies in B tower, so that we are only fighting enemies that are in A link.
Where the fuck is Omen?
Here I stayed with a Judge because I only have 86 HP, but also I still have one of my satchels to close the gap with remaining enemies and take some easy kills when they go for a spike defuse.
Satchel out. One enemy remaining.
80.
This is a really good example of why you should never complicate your rounds and do some unnecessary utility that enemies can use against you, especially if numbers are equal and enemies are playing some kind of a half-buy or a bonus round. If enemy Omen actually watched my ranked playbook for Lotus, in this 2v2 scenario where they know our exact locations, he should have done these two one-way smokes which grant them a safe defuse and potentially 2 easy kills if we were going to contest them. Remember, my friends, game knowledge in Valorant is everything. Now in this round, I'm gonna showcase you my default Raze execute on the C side of Lotus, which you can also use on the new reworked map. You deploy Boombot for Waterfall, drop your nade behind this pillar on the bomb site, then you can use one of your satchels to take the space in front of the double boxes and fight together with your teammates, or you can use 2 satchels to immediately contest enemies at the backside, but usually this double satchel you want to use when you're playing with a close range weapon.
Finally, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, let's go, fuck. Fuck him! Ah!
Also, remember, my friends, whenever you have numbers advantage in the post plant, just play together on a refrag potential. In this round, we made a huge mistake by over-peeking and staying on the bomb site, while we could have easily won this round if we all regrouped into C main, since Spike is perfectly planted for us, plus we have enormous amount of utility to delay the Spike defuse. Don't complicate things. The more you simplify your gameplay, the more success you're going to find in the ranked jungle.
Why the fuck I did that?
Last player standing. One enemy remaining.
El Martina. El Parmesano.
This round was a bit lucky, but to be honest, Raze ultimate in these 2v1 clutch scenarios is probably one of the best utility that you can have, as well as the enemies that whiff on you. Remember what I was teaching you about numbers advantage? That's exactly why enemies lost this round.
Precision kill.
Okay, they think I'm going C.
Spike planted. Satchel out.
My dude is droning. Nice drone. Please don't arrow me here. Thank you.
One enemy remaining.
Good.
Grenade. Clutch.
Una Martina.
Please, for the love of God, if you're in a 1v3 scenario on a defender side, you don't care about map control anymore. Let that enemy plant the spike wherever he wants. Stick together, clear angles together, and just play on a refrag potential. If they all did a retake together, even by coming from one angle, there's no way that I can kill all three of them at once. But these type of gameplay mistakes is exactly what you need to abuse in the clutch scenarios. And remember, number of remaining players in a round dictates how you need to play the ending of that round. Don't be a boosted gorilla. Be a smart player and stick to the butthole of your stupid teammates. In the next round, I wanted to do the same execute on C site as I did in the previous round, but this Sage wall was looking a bit sus, so I've used my boombot in a bit different way. Learn, adapt, and overcome, my friends, and I hope that until the end of this series I'm gonna learn how to properly double satchel. Also, here I've used my ultimate to protect the spike planter, to prevent enemies from peeking behind this Astra wall, and to potentially get some blind pick. You never know, in a game of Valorant, the more things you try, the more success you're gonna find. Once again, always pay attention when your signature ability is recharged, because maybe that piece of utility is exactly what you need to win that specific round. That's why here I was playing passively behind Mound with my Reyna, because I knew that I can use my nade to delay the defuse of the spike, and potentially split enemies apart into some easy 1v1 gunfights.
Do they plan to defuse the spike or...?
One enemy remaining.
Reyna?
Clutch.
Empty. GG.
Defenders win.
Now in the third match, Valorant Elder Gods blessed us with another split, which as you can see didn't start that well on the attacker's side. Our team composition was terrible, my teammates didn't want to play together, and they were dying solo left and right. In these type of games, team play doesn't exist for you anymore, and there are two things that you can do. Number one, try to search for some solo picks and punish enemies before they punish your teammates. Number two, try to compensate the mistakes of your allies and analyze which teammate has the highest chances of dying first, so that you can at least use him to fight together and potentially preserve some stupid deaths. In both of these scenarios, I recommend you to keep the spike close to yourself, because only God knows what your teammates are going to do with it. And when it comes to this 1v4 clutch that you're watching right now, you know exactly what it means when the Valorant clip suddenly ends on a 1v1. Yes, I lost this very important round. Now, throughout this whole match, enemy Sage on defender side was doing this wall on mid and performing this specific jump spot. That's why I was ready for this kill with my crosser placement.
They don't know about you.
Get out.
Remember that in Valorant, you need to be unpredictable and you cannot repeat the same strategies and setups over and over again. You don't need to completely change what you're doing if that's already working for you, but you need to tweak your gameplay a bit if you want to keep your head on your shoulders. Now, at the end of this round, 3 of my teammates once again died in some solo fights, but we managed to avoid enemies and plant the spike on A site for free, which left me in this 2v3 clutch scenario without any information about enemies. But soon after planting the spike, my Reyna died on ramp, and I knew that one enemy is in the main and one enemy is on A tower. Playing on site here would be an absolute sudoku, so I pushed CT in hopes to isolate at least one enemy into some solo fight, but this is what actually happened.
One enemy remaining.
For me. Grenade!
Remember, my friends, play smart, not hard, and we don't speak about that whiff on Brimstone and Raze. But what we can speak about is you hitting that subscribe button right now and leaving a like, if you don't want to miss some important guides and videos for your solo queue grind, baby. Moving on to Defender's side, my teammates were equally bad and undisciplined, selling their precious life and leaving me in a lot of clutch scenarios, such as this one. Here, after killing this Brimstone in screens, I've used my satchel to make the enemies think that I'm still going through this position. This allows me to keep my location a secret and to buy myself some time until I rotate on A tower.
One enemy remaining.
Well played.
As I've said previously, Raze utility is mainly the pressure-making tool, and when you deploy a nade like this, enemies are always panicking and they're forced to make some kind of a move that is gonna put them in an unfavorable gunfight. So you should have the confidence to go for a repeak and potentially catch that enemy off guard while he's moving or repositioning. And guess what happens in the next round? Yes, once again we are in a 2v3 scenario, and this is why you need to learn how to properly adapt yourself to different type of teammates. This round I'm just gonna let you enjoy, and down in the comments you can explain what was my thought process and also what was one crucial mistake that I've made. Let's see how much you've learned from me, my dear tricksters.
Joke's over!
Spike down A. One enemy remaining.
If you're already the best player in your team, you should value your own life a bit more, and you need to learn how to properly position yourself to isolate enemies and clutch these type of scenarios. I don't say that you should bait or sell your whole team, but you really need to focus on playing smart and compensating every single mistake that your teammates are making, because in Valorant, not only that you need to track what enemies are doing, you also need to track what your teammates are doing as well, and you need to babysit them like toddlers, especially in terms of their mentality.
30 seconds left. Last player standing.
Well played.
Many enemies saved. Cutting their vision. Go get it. Grenade!
Policy on site.
One enemy remaining.
City.
Spike down A.
Okay, take a break, guys.
GG boys. Both split and bind like on the attack are hell of a time. What rank is this?
These guys are all diamond. In the last game, we adapted our playstyle to our teammates, we played a bit more passively, and the game was not that interesting, but this fourth match on Ascent is where all hell let loose. Here you can notice that I'm playing Operator on the attacker side, so the question is, Charlatan, when is it okay to play up on the attack? Numero uno, whenever your teammates are too passive and you're mainly playing for the picks. Numero dos, whenever you notice that enemies are extremely repetitive when it comes to their positioning on defender's side, and you think that you can get away with one easy kill with Operator, punishing one enemy and creating numbers advantage for your team. Numero 3, when you're playing some long-range maps such as Breeze and Icebox. But whenever you're using Operator with Raze, you should also have a shorty as a secondary. So if you need to enter the bomb site for your team, you can simply double satchel, close the gap with enemies and create the space for them. Yes, even if I have the op, I'll still do whatever my team needs from me in order to win a specific round, even if it means double satcheling with Operator as a main weapon.
Kill the guy behind us.
Here I made 2 huge mistakes. I didn't realize that enemy Killjoy has the ultimate and I could have saved my nade to destroy it. Also, I completely spaced out during this round and I didn't realize that my Sage was pushing to destroy Killjoy's ultimate. What I should have done here is simply use my ultimate, push with a Sage, and win this round easily. But why should you simplify things when you can complicate them, right?
Satchel out.
One enemy remaining.
Thankfully, enemy Jet was completely disrespecting my ultimate, she closed the doors and decided to play inside of A site. The smart move here was to simply play from short or A tower and to contest us with some kind of a cover once we're hitting the site or planting the spike. Now please, for the love of God, never make this mistake that my teammates just made. If the call is already to push fast through some main area of the map, such as A main, B main or mid, clear that area of the map properly. Number 1, jump spot the enemies, bait their shots, reveal them and then contest them with proper crosshair placement and peek. Number 2, push the enemies back with some utility such as flash, dog, recon drone or anything. Number 3, cut the pie if enemies can play multiple different horizontal and vertical positions, clear the angles one by one. The most pointless deaths that you can have in Valorant are these deaths in the main areas of any map. You cannot swing everything like a monkey and expect that enemies won't be there or that they won't kill you. In a game of Valorant, you always expect that enemies can be anywhere and everywhere. You need to clear everything properly and you're playing this game as if you have paranoia in real life. Also, if you're playing Raze and your teammates are making this type of a mistake while they're not willing to cooperate, use the boombot or nade to push the enemies back from these positions. Trust me, it is always worth it if nobody in your team dies. Before we do some kind of an execute, of course. Which in this scenario I didn't do because I did tell my Sky to use a flash in order to push enemies back. I guess in Valorant you shouldn't trust your teammates with anything.
Spike down B.
Cool. One down.
And this is why Raze and Judge are such a good combo. But to be honest, you shouldn't be using this weapon as much as I was using it during these initial 5 games. For everything in Valorant, there's a place and time when you should do something. But also in lobbies below Ascendant, players usually have terrible tracking mechanics, so getting these skills is kinda easy. Now in the first round with Raze, on almost every close quarter map, such as Ascent, Split, Bind, etc., you want to buy Classic, Light Shield and 2 satchels, because Blast Pack is far more valuable than Boombot for the first round, and as I've already said, it's a bit more versatile piece of utility. And when it comes to the first Defenders round of Ascent, I always play on A site with every agent, since this is your default bomb site, and with Raze I love to play a bit more aggressive, because you can easily pressure the enemies and split them apart with your nade, if you time it correctly as I did in this example.
Step say yellow.
Grenade! See ya! Grenade!
What?
Okay, take a break, guys.
Now in a game of Valorant you also need to pay attention on how enemies are pushing into bomb site as well as which utility they're using. Remember that 90% of Valorant players are extremely repetitive and the sooner you read through their patterns, the sooner you're going to find some solution to counter them. During this match, whenever enemies were pushing onto A site, they only used Reyna Flash and Jet Dash to execute the bomb site, while their Gecko wasn't doing anything, plus they don't have any initiator in the team. All of this information allowed me to play a bit more aggro behind my Brimstone smoke in the choke point, and this is the result.
That's
remaining.
Wait for me.
Long.
Also, a lot of the times when I'm playing this close to the choke points with shotguns, I simply ignore Jett players that are dashing into the site, and I focus on the rest of her team, because closing the gap with that Jett is a huge gamble, and usually you should deal with her later, or let your teammates deal with her.
Grenade! Bomb buddy out.
B and B.
Grenade!
Now, after making this 4v2 numbers advantage, I made the worst mistake ever, trusting my teammates to play a proper refrag game. We knew that Jett was in B main, but we didn't have any info on Killjoy, so that is why I was checking behind us to see if maybe she decided to lurk or flank in this specific round. But while I was doing that, my Sage managed to die alone on mid, and my Skye and my Brimstone don't really understand this concept of playing on our refrag potential. These undisciplined plays, solo gunfights, and losing easy rounds will cost you enormous amount of games in Valorant. But to be honest, that's why in every elo below Immortal 3, you should never trust your teammates, and whenever you make numbers advantage or you notice that your teammates want to fight enemies, you should be there to compensate every single one of their mistakes. Below Immortal 3, not only that you need to be a nightmare for enemies, you also need to be a babysitter for your teammates. And the real game of Valorant can be played after Immortal 3 400 plus rank rating. This is a sad reality of ranked games. You never know who is mentally unstable, who is autopiloting, who is tired, and which one of your teammates entered the game just to lose their 15th match of the day. But I still take the full responsibility for this loss, because even though my game knowledge with Raze is extremely high, my Raze mechanics are still extremely rusty. Also, my aim is kinda shit compared to my brain. For the last match, I'm taking you out on Sunset, and once again in this Force Buy round, we're playing Judge. I don't know why, but whenever I play Raze, this weapon is so much fun and easy to use with her satchels as well. That's why this agent is extremely useful in every round, no matter what type of economy you have, as long as you master every single weapon in the game.
Nightmare's over. Reload. Ah, start down. Here comes
Right
the
here. Stim beacon here.
Spike planted. One enemy remaining.
Smoke's down.
That's in the back.
Reloaded. Enemy spotted B.
Nice.
Now, this game was extremely boring without any special highlights, so let me coach you a bit on Sunset. On the attack, you usually want to abuse 5-man pushes in the first 3 to 4 rounds. You should be testing enemies on B site and A site to see how they respond to your executes and what type of a gap you can abuse in their setup. In the first 3 rounds on this map, usually the best idea is to execute the same bomb site 3 times in a row, in order to create an unpredictable pattern of pushing, which allows you to surprise enemies in the 4th round with some kind of a fake, split, or different type of execute. If enemies have Cypher, you should mainly try to abuse A site in the first few rounds, and if enemies don't have Cypher, we should be abusing B site, which is your default bomb site on this map. But even if enemies do have a Cypher, for some reason the walls on this map are made out of paper, and you can destroy the most common Cypher tripwires with these easy lineups, even with a classic pistol through 5 different walls. Yes, this is a bug and it's probably going to be fixed in the future, but you won't get banned for this and you can abuse it as long as it's working, same as you can abuse this Omen teleport on the new Lotus. Discovering these little tricks in Valorant can give you an upper hand in your ranked games to gain an advantage, and that's why game knowledge is everything, baby. Now, when you're pushing onto B site, make sure that nobody dies in the B main area of the map before your execute. Clear every single corner and every little gap where enemies can hide, play some kind of a double bait strategy, or maybe with their pop flashes. Ask your Cypher to use the camera here, tell your Skye to flash, jump spot the enemies, use everything that you can in order to clear this area properly. And if your teammates don't want to do it, you can use your boombot to clear some of these angles yourself, and sometimes I would even use my nade to pressure the enemies back and push them. Now, the same story goes for A site. Please tell your Cypher to use this camera, tell your Omen to flash the A short on the contact with enemies, tell your Sova to use the recon dart in elbow, make sure that nobody dies until you reach these two positions, and once again, if your teammates don't want to listen, use your own utility to protect them and properly clear every single angle until we are ready for the execute. Also remember that when you're pushing onto A site, taking the elbow control is extremely important. That's why 90% of times I'm first taking the elbow control and then from this location I'm performing some kind of an execute. Now you should keep abusing 5-man executes as long as they're working for you, because simplified gameplay is always better in ranked environment. And if they are not working, then you need to put some pressure onto mid and fight for top mid and market control. If you notice that enemies are never fighting for mid, you should be abusing this area of the map to split enemies apart, or to potentially surprise them with some kind of a lurk. Because on this map, when you don't have top mid and market control, you're losing a lot of information about enemies, and the round becomes significantly harder for the defenders. Also, whenever you're taking mid control, always tell your controller to give you the smoke for top mid. This is very important. Now, in a game of Valorant, being an IGL is almost impossible, but you still need to micromanage your teammates to some degree in order to have higher chances of winning a specific round or match. And if your teammates are not listening, you need to find some kind of a solution yourself and focus on compensating your teammates' mistakes. That's why Omen, Raze and Jett are S+ agents to climb the ranked ladder, because they have a huge versatility and they're extremely self-sustainable. And when it comes to Sunset, I've covered this map completely in my ranked playbook that you can access on my Discord server, as well as the majority of other Valorant maps.
Platinum 1.
So in this first episode, for the first time ever, we lost one of our placement games, and we're starting our journey from Platinum 1. But to be honest, I was MVP in every single game, and this account has a really high hidden MMR, which means that already from the next episode we'll be playing against some Ascendant and low Immortal players. I'm really curious to see how much I'm gonna improve on Raze, and with what win rate we're going to end up in this series. Also, there's still plenty of tips, tricks and strategies that I need to teach you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you, my dear tricksters, in the next one.